Hello everyone, and welcome to First Unity Church of St. Louis Sunday Service. We know you have choices of what you'd like to do with your time, so we're very grateful that you chose to spend part of it with us today. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the people that make our service possible today. In order of appearance, there's First Unity Prayer Chaplain Mary Tuminello, soloist Dean Wiegert, and our minister, Reverend Jan Mourning. Behind the scenes, we have our creative videographer Kathy Boyd and webmaster Carol Ellerman. The title of Jan's message today is Snickers for breakfast? Cereal for dinner? These are my two favorite food groups. I can't wait to hear more. So let's get started with our Sunday service by welcoming First Unity Prayer Chaplain Mary Tuminello to read the daily word.
Good morning. I have the privilege of reading the daily word for you today. And first, I want you to know that I miss all of you and know that in divine universe order, we will be back together again soon. Today, Sunday's message is release. I release all that does not contribute to my highest good. John's Gospel tells of Jesus restoring life to his friend Lazarus, who had been dead 4 days. As Jesus cried, "Lazarus, come out," his friend emerged from his tomb. Excuse me, I'm going to have to put my glasses on. Burial cloths still covering his face and wrapped around his hands and feet. Jesus said to those who had gathered, "Unbind him and let him go. Even after a spiritual resurrection, I may remain bound like Lazarus by thoughts, ideas, feelings, and habits that keep me from full experience of freedom. Through my divine power of elimination, I release negative feelings, dissolve errors, thoughts, and free myself from habits and actions that do not serve my highest good. I am no longer bound. I am free." And from John chapter 11, verse 44, the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Let us pray. Here we are in our divine spirit, perhaps in a place that is dark, perhaps with fear and worry and wonder. We are going to come out of all of that, come out of the tomb, take off our binds, and know that within the peace and love and courage and strength that we have, we will walk forward. We will let go of our bind. We will always know that we have the perfect outcome. Jesus came to teach us this, and we are so grateful because we know with this all things are possible. And so it is. Amen.
I know there are lights burning brighter somewhere, and I know there are birds flying higher in a sky more blue. So when I can dream of a better land where all my brothers walk hand in hand, then I know, yes, I know that my dreams can come true. Yes, I know there must be peace and understanding sometime. Strong winds of promise that will blow away the doubt and fear. So when I can dream of a warmer sun where hope keeps shining on everyone, then I know, yes, I know that God's light will appear. Sometimes we get lost in a cloud with too much rain. Sometimes we get trapped in a world that's troubled with pain. But as long as we all have the strength to dream, we can redeem our souls and fly. Deep in my heart, there's a trembling question, but still, I am sure the answer's gonna come somehow. Out there in the dark, there's a beckoning candle, and while I can think, while I can talk, while I can stand, while I can walk, while I can dream, I know that my dreams can come true. Oh, I know that my dreams can come true right now. I know with God's light, my dreams can come true right now.
Good morning and welcome. It's hard to believe that we have been under a safe-at-home guideline for 5 weeks. A friend called me recently and said, okay, I cleaned out every single closet and alphabetized my spices. Now what do I do? And you may have seen the post on Facebook this week from a woman who carefully did her hair, applied her makeup, and put on her best dress. After admiring herself in the mirror, she proclaimed, I'm ready to go to the mailbox. Last week, an interviewer on NPR admitted that he had never ever cooked for himself, but felt tremendous pressure to do so from his Facebook friends. He found some recipes online, made a trip to the grocery store, and cooked for the very first time in his life. At first, he said everything tasted pretty good, and he felt some satisfaction about the process. But by week's end, it just didn't seem worth the effort. So he decided to give it up. The very next morning, he had Snickers for breakfast, popcorn for the lunch meal, and cereal for dinner, and he was happy. Having heard this story this week, it reminded me of a New Testament character who, although not surviving a pandemic, becomes overwhelmed with cooking and serving. From her story, I thought we might draw insight about our own activities and attitudes during this time of involuntary isolation. This tale is only 4 verses long, yet it has been a source of debate and inspiration for centuries. I'm reading today from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work? Tell her to help me." Well, we know from the Gospel of John that Martha, Mary, and their brother Lazarus, whom Mary read about today, are dear friends of Jesus who live in Bethany, which is just outside Jerusalem, making Martha's house a convenient stop for Jesus and his entourage as they traveled back and forth from the holy city. Bible scholars believe that Martha was the leader of what was called a house church. That means she was someone who frequently opened her home for Jesus and his followers, providing them food, shelter, and possibly even financial support. Now we know in first century Jewish culture, a woman's place in society and in the temple was clearly limited. Yet women frequently played a central role in the life and teachings of Jesus. Now, if we take this story literally, I think many of us can identify with Martha. Why should she be stuck in the kitchen doing all the work while Mary is poised and relaxed at the Master's knee? After all, didn't the crowd need to be fed? If Martha had abandoned her kitchen duties, would everyone have gone hungry? Certainly, in that time, it wasn't quite as easy as ordering a pizza. So, Martha in her own way is serving Jesus. But why does she become so upset? Is she exhausted from all the preparation? That would be understandable. Is she frustrated because she is unable to break out of the traditional woman's role while her sister joins them in as a listener, a scholar, and a disciple? Although we can only guess about Martha's motives, the key to this story seems to be her attitude, her consciousness. She is focused on serving, but at some point becomes overwhelmed by her tasks. She seems to be dishing up anger and resentment right along with the meal. And what was Mary's motive, sitting at the feet of Jesus, listening to his words? Was her intention to abandon her sister? Or was she simply too engrossed in Jesus' teachings to notice the domestic tasks and her sister's desire for help? Now, notice Martha doesn't discuss any of this with Mary. Instead, she appeals directly to Jesus. I picture her with her apron on, face smudged with flour, hands on her hip, flying out of that kitchen and interrupting Jesus' teaching, saying, "Lord, don't you care that my sister left me in the kitchen to do all the work?" And then she issues an order to Jesus. "Tell her to help me." Sounds a little bit like triangular communication, does it not? I mean, here's Martha appealing to Jesus to change Mary's behavior to suit her. Maybe she thinks Mary will listen to Jesus more than she would listen to her own sister. But the story continues with Jesus' response, which is interesting. "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, or as some translations say, the better part, and it will not be taken away from her." Now, why does Jesus seem to chastise Martha? He repeats her name as one might to a child. It has been suggested that in saying, "Martha, Martha," Jesus is trying to calm her and bring her back to her better self. Even though she asked Jesus to deal with Mary, he turns the situation right back to her. As we read, he says, "You are worried and upset." Other translations read, "anxious, troubled, and fretting about many things." Now, fretting may be a pattern for her. Remember, Jesus is a good friend of the sisters, and he knows her really well. Following that, though, he says, there is only one thing, and Mary is taking the better part. Now, this line has led Bible scholars for centuries to give what I consider superficial treatment to the two sisters, to consider Mary as the good sister for paying attention to Jesus, and condemn Martha as the bad sister for being so concerned about mundane household tasks. But the story, as usual, has deeper meaning. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore tells us in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary that the two sisters represent love operating at different levels. Martha represents love that ministers, serves, and provides material necessities, while Mary represents love that attends to the spiritual inner side of our souls. Jesus is the fully evolved Christ presence. Martha entertains the Christ by insisting that outer duties be given priority, while Mary symbolizes that quiet receptivity within each one of us that listens to and aligns with the inner Christ presence. And note that Mary sits at the feet of Jesus. The revealing word tells us that feet represent spiritual understanding that connects us with the outer world and reveals the right relationship between the two. In other words, shows us how to be spiritual beings having a human experience. So the typical interpretation of this tale is that Martha is too focused on worldly duties and Mary is focused on spiritual inspiration. I think that is part of what we can take away from the story, but right now, during this time of social distancing and staying at home, when we all try to fill our days with worthwhile activities, I think we can learn much from Martha and Mary about doing and being. Mary shows us the importance of taking time to align with the Christ of our being. If we can't go outside, then we can go inside. We can make time for prayer, meditation, listening to spiritual music, taking a walk, whatever uplifts our souls. Martha was distracted by many things, and now, even despite Netflix, we have fewer distractions in our lives and more time for what is really important. However, even in a pandemic, Martha's task must still be done. We must somehow get groceries, create meals, pay bills, clean, do laundry, and for many, teach our children. It's not about ignoring worldly tasks, it's more about our state of mind as we perform them. Last week, I heard a psychologist discussing ways for people to remain calm, happy, and fulfilled during our stay-at-home seclusion. She shared that in the past few weeks of working at home, she had become absolutely obsessed by running the vacuum several times a day, picking up hair from her 3 very large dogs. Finally, one day, she sat down and said to herself, "My whole identity has been tied to a clean carpet." And so she chose to stop running the sweeper. Well, after a few days watching the dog hair pile up, she made a startling discovery. She really missed running the sweeper. She had enjoyed being able to take a little work break and get some exercise. It lifted her spirits to know that this was something she could actually control. She loved seeing the dog hair disappear, and she realized that she and her partner could breathe much more easily without the dog dander. She decided to go right back to sweeping because it brought her joy. And maybe that's the point of our story today. It's up to each one of us to spend time engaging in activities that give us joy and feed our souls. And of course, that will be different for each one of us. For me, it might be pulling weeds around my koi pond. For you, it might be creating a quilt or building a bookcase. And when we stay spiritually centered, when we turn first to the divine, we can find meaning and purpose in all of our tasks, even the most mundane or trivial, even the ones we're not too fond of doing. This is exemplified by a story many of you know, and it's one of my favorite stories. It goes like this. Over 1,500 years ago, one of the most highly accomplished English architects in history, Sir Christopher Wren, was walking through one of his construction sites, and none of the workers even realized who he was. So Mr. Wren approached one of the stonemasons, hard at work, and asked what he was doing. And the worker wiped the sweat from his brow and responded, "Can't you see? I'm sanding down this block of marble." Well, Wren went to a second mason and asked the same question. And he replied, "Can't you see? I'm earning a shilling a day to support my family." Finally, the architect asked the question to a third mason. And this one joyfully replied, "Can't you see? I'm building a cathedral to the glory of God." Notice the same task, but very different levels of consciousness. Now, if Martha could have found purpose and joy in serving Jesus and his disciples, that would have been amazing. But instead, she sees herself as a victim. And Jesus tells her that she has a choice, just as Mary does, just as we all do. Maybe Martha shows us that when we try to express our love in unselfish service, but do so without spiritual understanding, we can lose sight of our greater mission and end up feeling exhausted, depleted, and empty. I think that's happened to all of us at one time or another. Unity co-founder Myrtle Fillmore writes, "Sometimes our attention becomes so engrossed in the things we are trying to do that we forget to unify ourselves with the source of our being. In other words, we forget who we truly are." So really, it doesn't have to be a choice between being and doing. Martha and Mary represent two aspects of our own consciousness. Reverend Ed Townley says, here the real power of this story becomes clear. We simply have to ask, how do I integrate these two parts of my soul? Because when we, like Mary, take time to sit in a consciousness of oneness with Spirit, then we too, like the third stonemason, can make the simplest Martha task sacred. Every task we take on can be sacred. In the translation from the Message of the story, Jesus tells Martha, "You're fussing far too much and getting yourself worked up over nothing. There is only one thing." And that one thing is for each of us to listen to and remain centered in the awareness of Spirit, as Mary did. And in that consciousness, we learn, as hopefully Martha did, to do all that needs to be done by us in purpose and joy and for the glory of God. And if we find ourselves slipping back into agitation, maybe we can set aside our work and just be for a while. Perhaps Martha's appeal to Jesus to make her help me is evidence that on some level, Martha was asking for help in uniting with her Mary's side. And likewise, Mary will have to realize that there are human tasks to be done. But taking time to feel the presence of God before we begin those tasks allows us to say yes to all of our spiritual attributes. We become aligned with the love, peace, harmony, and wisdom that we truly are. And in this consciousness, we exercise discernment to know which tasks are really ours to do, and then we approach those tasks with greater purpose and meaning. Like Mary, we become open and receptive to the guidance of Spirit, and then our Martha tasks become effortless. We perform them joyfully, mindfully, in the moment. And maybe after spending time with Christ, we will decide to have Snickers for breakfast and cereal for dinner. And that's okay. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful week and spend time doing what brings you joy and feeds your soul.
I've touched the hem of his garment. I can almost see his face, and my heart is overflowing with the fullness of his joy. I know without a doubt that I've been with the Lord. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel His mighty power and His grace. I can feel the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
And so now I invite you to close your eyes if you have not already done so. And right where you are, just take a deep cleansing breath, breathing into the sacred infinite presence in the sanctuary of your own soul. Hold that breath for a few seconds, feeling Spirit gently moving through you now. And as you exhale, just let go of any physical or mental tension. Release anything that is keeping you from experiencing the presence of God. And now as you continue to breathe, feel your body relax, your mind clear, and your heart open. Know that you are at this moment and always one in the Holy Spirit of divine love, peace, harmony, wisdom, and joy. In this consciousness, let's take a little time to revisit the moment when Jesus addresses Martha. He says to her gently, lovingly, "Martha, Martha," recalling her back to herself, to her true identity as a spiritual being. You are worried and distracted by many things. Like the good friend that he is, Jesus puts a mirror up to Martha, helping her to clearly see that for a moment she had lost touch with her true essence and her true mission. Those words of Jesus remind us that no matter what our earthly challenges and tasks might be, we are always one in a greater power. Our true mission is to live in constant awareness of the presence of God, knowing that Spirit is with us, within us, and expressing as us every moment of our lives. Like Jesus, we are in the world, but not of the world. We are human, and we are so much more. Created in the image and likeness of Spirit, we are endowed with all the inner resources to live our lives in perfect peace, perfect harmony, and perfect joy. This is as true when we are preparing meals and cutting the grass as it is when we are praying and meditating. There is no earthly challenge too great or mundane task too small when we remember it is not I, but the Christ within who does the work. So if there is any area of your life where you have been overwhelmed by your situation or by your tasks, bring that situation into your mind's eye for a moment. Be willing to integrate your Mary and Martha sides. Like Mary, Open your heart and mind to the indwelling Christ. Listen to and align with your inner higher self. And know in this consciousness, in the Christ of your being, you have all you need to perfectly, joyfully complete all of your marvelous tasks or face any challenge before you. You are here to be all that you can imagine God to be. Your inner world and outer world are in perfect harmony. Visualize this for a few moments in the silence, feeling your purpose and your joy. And now we come together to set the intention to nourish the spiritual aspects of our souls and also to embrace every present moment, to serve as channels of spirit, to let God's infinite quality shine through us in all we do. Blessed with a sense of power, wholeness, and harmony, we say thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Jan, for reminding us that we always have a choice about how we react to outer influences and experiences, and how choosing our thoughts and our reaction when we're on that threshold of uncertainty can make all the difference in the world. Before we end today's service, let's take a moment to open our hearts and raise our hands as we say the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We'll conclude today's service with Daniel Young's song, Sitting on a Gold Mine. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
So many doubts along the way. Felt like life was just another bill to pay, without anything to show. But now I figured out that every day my fortune's always found within my faith. And all I need is to let it flow, 'cause there's no wall around me, only fear has truly bound me. And all I need is trust, and I am free. I'm sitting on a gold mine. I'm sitting on a gold mine. My treasure has been right here all the time. I'm sitting on a gold mine. Alright, yeah. Finally, I'm breaking through so many lies. All those people telling me to run and hide from the truth of what I am. But now I'm telling you the future's bright. Tomorrow shines like diamonds in the sky. And all I needed was to understand that whatever I'm believing, well, that's what I'm receiving from the riches that reside inside of me. I'm sitting on a gold mine. Sitting on a gold mine. I'm sitting on a gold mine. Alright. My treasure has been right here all the time. I'm sitting on a gold mine. listen, never listen to the voice that says you better play it safe, that says you don't have any choice, 'cause you're as gifted as an angel, as brilliant as the sun. Just say the word